Hi, welcome to today's presentation, Nourishing Egg and Sperm Quality. I'm Ayla Barmmer. I am the founder and CEO of FullWell. I am also the one behind our formulations, and I'm really excited to be here today contributing to the Knowledge Well, which is a big initiative that we started planning quite a while ago now. And I am so excited about how it's turning out and the way that it's evolving. If you haven't checked out all of the amazing high quality resources that we've put together, and the experts that we've recruited to come and talk about so many different aspects of fertility, parenthood, breastfeeding, pregnancy, postpartum recovery, please check it out because we're really pouring our heart and souls into, these resources. And for me, this is truly a dream because it's taking really what I've done in one-on-one practice for the past 15 plus, really 17 years, to make it available, widely available to the masses. And I think I'm just really proud of what we've pulled together. And I hope that you find the resources helpful. Always open to feedback on what you'd like to see and what you think of them. So without further ado, let's jump into this presentation. So I'm Ayla Barmmer. My background, for those that don't know me, I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist. I'm also an herbalist. I am a functional medicine practitioner. I have a master's degree in health communications from Boston University. And I have over 17 years of experience in private practice, clinical work, research, and teaching. And my expertise is in infertility and women's health. FullWell was born out of a need that I saw in my practice. I will be honest, I did not ever expect it to be what it is today. It really started as me wanting to develop the perfect formula to use with my clients in practice that I felt was as high quality and evidence based as I wanted to see. It also was driven by my desire to get behind the curtain, as I like to say, of the supplement industry, because I think there's a real issue with transparency in the supplement industry as a whole, as well as thoroughness in ensuring quality and safety of supplements. And so those were my main drivers behind founding FullWell and how it really all got started. So let's lay the foundations here though before we dive into the meat of this topic and really just recognize that fertility health matters and it is a huge challenge right now. 1 in 6 people are affected by infertility, and that doesn't include the many times more that have some degree of subfertility. What that means is you may not have been diagnosed with infertility, received that official diagnosis, but you're still struggling to conceive. These numbers have been rising consistently for decades, and the root causes to infertility are also the very same things that affect long-term health of humans. So by addressing the root causes of fertility challenges, we can really help build healthy families, your healthy family, and communities. And so this is really what drives our work and why we do what we do at FullWell is that it's more than just getting to a positive pregnancy test. That's the first step, right? But it's really about a healthy pregnancy, healthy babies, building healthy families, and reducing the overall challenges that our whole society worldwide really is facing around struggling to conceive. So women bear the burden of fertility issues. This is, I think people would be hard pressed to argue that that is not true. We view infertility as a women's health issue, and that's just not the case. And if we look at the statistics, we see that infertility and just generally fertility challenges affect women and men equally. So 30% of infertility issues are due primarily to female factors. 30% are due primarily to male factors. And then there's this remaining category, which is the largest, 40%, and that's due to unexplained infertility. Definitely, arguably, the most frustrating diagnosis of all, right? Because it's this giant bucket that doesn't tell you a whole lot, but that tends to mean a combination of both female and male factors. So the challenge here, getting pregnant takes a lot of things going right in order for it to happen. And I promise we're going to get to the really empowering information soon. So don't let this deflate you. But I do want to just acknowledge that it takes a lot of steps to get pregnant. I think, if we think back to middle school and high school, sex ed and biology, it's like, they made it seem like you could get pregnant so easily, right? And that's just really not the case. So first of all, we need hormonal balance to be at play. We need our hormones to be in sufficient amounts and in balance with each other to allow for follicle development and ultimately ovulation. So just to kind of back up here, imagine there's all these tiny little egg cells that are developing over time. That actually starts a year prior to ovulation, but if it really ramps up in that 3-ish months prior to ovulation. And so what's happening is there's a number of different follicles, these kind of egg cells that are developing, and essentially racing to the finish line. Ultimately, just one egg is ovulated, in some cases two, and that's when we get like fraternal twins. But most typically, you're going to see one follicle take the lead, and ultimately, that is what is ovulated. And so it's really critical for hormones to be in good balance so that follicles develop properly, and then there's a healthy, robust, egg that you ovulate and ultimately conceive with. You've got to also identify and time intercourse for the fertility window properly. This is something that is seems obvious, but it's something I've seen in practice where the fertility window actually starts 4 or 5 days prior to ovulation, and then as soon as ovulation hits, you've just got a matter of hours really before that fertility window closes. And so it's important that you time things right and you hit your fertility window. You need healthy cervical mucus and a healthy uterine environment to allow sperm to survive. Healthy cervical mucus really helps to nourish sperm and kind of is like the highway for them to make their way to the egg for ovulation. Then the egg itself has to be good quality. Chromosomal errors, which we'll talk about, becomes the highest risk. Sperm with good motility, morphology. So essentially, enough sperm in the right shape and size without damage. That needs to be at play as well to make its way to the egg and allow for fertilization. Again, chromosomal errors are the biggest risk, and we'll talk about how you can, how you can reduce the risk of that. Then you have fertilization, but it doesn't stop there. At that point, you've got, your embryo that needs to implant, into the uterine wall, and that endometrium needs to be thick enough and healthy enough for that to happen. The embryo development then starts, and only about a third of fertilized embryos survive to become a baby. So that is kind of a stunning thing to think about, and that's when we see early losses before it even would be apparent that you were pregnant, or you may not even be late on getting your cycle. And there's a continuous selection here against chromosomal abnormalities. So I always like to explain to clients that like your body's doing exactly what it's designed to do if it's going around and scouting and seeing, okay, are there any issues with this embryo, any issue with this egg, the sperm, this overall embryo, and selecting for that, and if there is, that pregnancy doesn't continue. In some cases it does. And so that can lead to further issues, but really your body's doing what it's designed to do by checking to ensure that this can be a healthy pregnancy. Then there's the fetal development period. Obviously that's, first trimester and beyond, that's the pregnancy itself. And then, the risk of miscarriage is approximately 10 to 15% overall. So if this is you, if you've experienced loss before, just know you've heard it. It doesn't make it any less painful, but it's so common. All right, so we've got the preconception period. What we really call this period is that 3 to 6 plus months before actually conceiving, before a positive pregnancy test. And, I think that, the stress of conception is not to be underestimated, right? And again, you may be listening and thinking, yeah, that is accurate. When conception isn't achieved, when you don't get pregnant on the timeline that you expected, it's really stressful, right? And we all expect, I think there's that expectation that's set, like I said, very early on from those middle and high school biology class days, that conception will be easy, and I think it's further compounded by the fact that we don't talk about how difficult it is to conceive, how common pregnancy loss is, how many people are really facing this issue in our society as a whole. It's one of those topics that becomes kind of like hushed and kept very private because it is a very personal experience. But this is one of the reasons why we really do think it's going to be easy and should be on a timeline that we've planned, and that can be really tough to deal with when it isn't. So there are things that you can do though. And here's where we're going to shift into the positive, empowering side of this presentation. And I'm excited to do that for you. So despite how challenging it is to conceive, despite all the things that need to go right and all the things that can potentially go wrong, and a lot of things that are out of our control, there's a lot that is in our control and a lot of things that we can do if we're strategic to improve the quality of our eggs and sperm in that 3 to 6 months before you start trying to conceive. And the payoff is huge. I mean, this isn't just about getting that positive pregnancy test. This is about the future health of your baby, the future health of your family. It's even about the future health of your baby's babies, so this goes through generations. So the time frame for change, I've already touched on this a little bit. The life cycle for sperm and egg creation falls within roughly a 90-day window. That does depend a little bit on individual hormones, but it's about 3 months. And so when you really zero in on that 3-month time frame before trying to conceive, you're going to really help optimize sperm and egg health. I would say if you have the luxury, right, and you're planning far enough in advance to push it 4, 5, 6 months or even longer, even better, right? Because that just means you have more time to really optimize things. Okay. So eggs versus sperm development. I know this may look a little bit overwhelming, right? But I just wanted to show a visual of what it really looks like, because I think there's this perception that we are born with all of the eggs that we are going to have throughout our lifetime. And the reality is, yes, but we are born with all the egg cells, these very primordial cells that are not ultimately the egg that we ovulate. That happens over time. So those cells are mobilized, and they're influenced by the overall environment of our body, and that includes hormones, that includes nutrient status, and all of those things really affect that egg cell and sperm cells as they develop into the mature sperm and egg that they ultimately will be, and ultimately will be used for conception. And so this is why that window before conceiving is just so important, because both sperm and egg are getting all along the way, all along this journey where it's developing, it's getting inputs from your environment, from your diet, your lifestyle. And this is actually called a really fascinating field called epigenetics. And it really is it's really how evolution works. It's how so many species evolve and survive, is by taking inputs from the environment and telling essentially the reproductive eggs what is egg and sperm what to do, what life looks like on the outside, right? Like how it needs to develop and behave. So hopefully that's clear how I describe that, but it's just so important what we do during that time frame while sperm and egg, those primordial cells, are developing into their mature forms. Okay, why egg health? Well, egg health is just one part of the bigger picture when it comes to fertility. We know that eggs that are higher quality with less DNA damage are more likely to implant successfully. And so by optimizing your egg quality through food and supplements, you're really safeguarding your fertility. And egg quality, in simple terms, means whether or not an egg is genetically healthy. So both egg and sperm need the right number, which is actually 23 of chromosomes, tiny structures inside the nucleus of a cell, in order to be for a healthy embryo to be created. I would also argue that egg health matters even if you're not trying to conceive right now, because it is a reflection of overall hormone balance. So I've touched on this before, but one thing that is very common with fertility challenges is seeing low progesterone. You may or may not have been told that. And the common conventional treatment is to just give progesterone. That isn't necessarily bad, but I have always asked in practice and when I'm working with clients is, let's try to get to the root cause of that. Why is progesterone low? And sometimes that can be an egg quality issue, reflective of an egg quality issue, because remember that ultimately most of the progesterone that we produce comes from the egg itself. And so getting into the details of that is probably like going to send me on a whole tangent here, but happy to cover it if that is something that is of interest. But just know that egg quality is ultimately a result of good hormone balance, good nutrient status, and we're going to get into some of the other things like environmental inputs that can affect the quality of eggs. But it's really important that egg quality is robust. Why sperm health? Well, the reality is that the health of men's semen and sperm affects a couple's ability to conceive just as much as the health of women and the quality of their eggs. The health of semen and sperm influences so many pregnancy complications. Even though the placenta nourishes the baby and grows inside of mama, the blueprint really comes from dad's genes. I find that just mind-blowing. Our women, put another way, women develop an entirely new organ, which is the placenta, to nourish baby throughout a pregnancy. But again, the blueprint for how that placenta develops and how healthy the placenta is does come from men's genes. So the genetic input from sperm and semen overall that men are contributing actually influences the health of the placenta. So this is one of the ways in which men's fertility matters so much to the health of a pregnancy. Okay. Fertility is absolutely impacted by oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is an imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants in the body. We have a comprehensive blog post coming out, and maybe by the time this is launched, it will already be out. And you can check that out, really explaining what antioxidants are, what oxidative stress is. Essentially, though, a lot of egg and sperm quality issues come back to this concept of oxidative stress, and it's why antioxidants become so critical. So I'm going to be talking a lot about it. It's important to understand. Oxidative stress is actually really the underlying root cause of most cases of inflammation too. Not all, but inflammation largely can be rooted back to oxidative stress. So you probably have heard of inflammation. We know that's something that we want to generally avoid, at least chronic inflammation. And so oxidative stress and reducing that is one of the ways in which we can do that. So, we're exposed to, where does oxidative stress come from? We're exposed to more environmental chemicals and pollutants today than any other time in history. Our toxic body burden or lifelong accumulation of chemicals that we're exposed to has really increased, in response to, to these new demands in our environment. And it is possible to avoid or limit toxin exposure, but there's no way to completely avoid it. It's just, these things are just pervasive in our modern environments now. There are ways, however, to really minimize, as I said, external exposures to support and also to support the body's natural detoxification efforts. So I will say that this is where age really comes into play. Women over 40 are more likely to have chromosomal abnormalities in their eggs. And this can be as high as 50 to 80% of their eggs being chromosomally abnormal. And and really, a lot of this can be, not all of it, but some of it can kind of trace back to the cumulative effect of environmental toxins on our body and the cumulative effect of just stressors as a whole on our body over time. So, this is where I'm going to talk a lot about how, especially if you are over 35, particularly if you're over 30 and trying to conceive, antioxidants become even more important because we want to mitigate this cumulative effect of these stressors on our body over time. It's more important as you age than ever, but it's really important for all of us because we're all living in these environments. Okay, so for both men and women, women each month, the developing egg is called an oocyte. That's that egg cell, that immature egg cell that I referenced earlier, and that starts to mature. This requires some oxidative stress, but too much can negatively impact the oocyte, the embryo, and implantation by causing DNA damage and altering hormones as well. For men, sperm quantity, the motility, which is the movement, and morphology, which refers to their structure and shape, really depends on balancing the body's antioxidant activity and oxidative stress to a really large extent. So, in semen, the seminal plasma or the fluid portion of semen is rich in antioxidants to help protect sperm. At least ideally, it's rich in antioxidants to protect sperm. Cervical mucus, by the way, also is rich in nourishing compounds to help protect sperm because sperm are very, very sensitive, even more so than eggs, to oxidative stress. Oxidative stress can damage sperm and decrease their flexibility and tail motion, essentially their ability to swim and ability to kind of penetrate the egg to allow for fertilization. And this is so important because once sperm are damaged, they can't repair themselves, they can't repair their own membranes. To some extent, really healthy eggs can overcome some damage to sperm, but ultimately, what we want to do is to try to improve both at the same time so we increase your chances of success. AMH. You have probably, if you've been had any sort of fertility evaluation, you probably have had an AMH drawn. This is a blood test. AMH itself is a hormone that is produced by the granulosa cells that support a growing egg in the ovary. It's only one part of the puzzle, though, to determining how many follicles are active at any point in time. I want to really emphasize that because your AMH is not your destiny or proof that you can't conceive today or at a specific point in the future, even though it is characterized that way in a lot of conventional medical settings. It's a measurement of egg quality. This is so important. It can be a helpful test for thinking about potential outcomes for procedures like egg freezing and in vitro fertilization, but it's not the end all be all. Do not treat an AMH like a one time test that determines your destiny because it does change. And there are things that influence it in a positive way because we can influence egg quality. So again, how to think about AMH? Well, AMH naturally does decline with age as the pool of eggs diminish over time. And we want to consider factors that increase with aging and that could also affect fertility, like oxidative stress, as we talked about, mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria are like, and we'll talk about this, they're like the batteries for cell. And eggs have many, many, many times more mitochondria than any other cell in the body because they need a ton of energy. So, again, think of mitochondria as batteries, and oxidative stress can rust those batteries. So, we want to protect mitochondrial dysfunction by reducing oxidative stress. Vitamin D levels also affect AMH, as does DHEA, which is a hormone that our body produces, and then the thyroid gland as well. So those are all a few things that can affect the health of the granulosa cells, which are cells within the ovary, and it's just a couple of the ways in which AMH is influenced and how it can change when we start to improve the overall health of really your body, and hormone balance and nutrient status and reducing oxidative stress. All that's after you've done a little work on these things, that's the time to maybe recheck AMH and see if that's budged. A semen analysis, what it is and what it isn't. So I talk a lot about this when I talk about men's fertility, because I often see so much stock being put into it, one semen analysis. And while it does give us good data on sperm count and concentration, which is the number of sperm per unit of volume of semen, it tells us a bit about motility, how well the sperm can move to the egg, morphology, so the shape and structure of sperm. It's not a measure, at least not entirely, of DNA damage. There is some DNA damage that can be assessed by more comprehensive semen analysis, but it will never measure all types of DNA damage within the sperm. It doesn't measure oxidation. It can't measure the antioxidant defenses of semen. Again, eggs can overcome some damage to sperm, but only if they're minimally damaged and only if the egg itself is really healthy too. So even if your practitioner has said, hey, your semen analysis is great, this is not a you issue, this is a female factor infertility issue, I would say it is still critically important for men to also be making changes in focusing on their preconception health, because again, we need to optimize semen. We need to optimize sperm health. It's not just about it being okay at any given point in time. And that's an important point, because a semen analysis is just a snapshot of what sperm health looks like then. Anything that's changing in our environment or diet or lifestyle will change, sperm, because they're constantly being produced, and anything in that 3-month window, right, is going to affect them. And so it's just, it's not enough to say, you had a semen analysis X number of months ago, everything looked fine. Last point there is that I often see, maybe a practitioner say semen analysis looks good, but from their vantage point, is the semen analysis, does the sperm look good enough to be successful with assisted reproductive technologies, so fertility treatments, right? They're not necessarily looking at, is that sperm or semen healthy enough for natural conception and fertility. So I just wanted to make that point, because it's there's good and then there's optimal, right? And we want to go for optimal for the not just conception and the positive pregnancy test, but also for the health of the pregnancy. All right, so let's get into some of the real meat here on what you can do. So why antioxidants for egg and sperm health? I hope that I've made this really clear thus far in the presentation, but eggs and sperm are very susceptible to damage from oxidative stress. So one way to combat that is to really significantly up your intake of antioxidants via food and supplements, to help combat it. Basically, antioxidants help to neutralize free radicals that are contributing to too much oxidative stress. It's also really essential to address sources of oxidative stress in every aspect of your life. And we have so many resources that we've put together on this and the knowledge well around evaluating the biggest bang for your buck type strategies to limiting your oxidative stress in your environment. So ways to avoid exposures that are going to have an impact on your antioxidant reservoir and your overall egg and sperm health. So we definitely have resources on that. And I will say it's never, again, make the point here that it's never something we can avoid entirely, but we can reduce environmental stressors, and then we can add in lots of antioxidants and nutrients to help combat what we can't control. And just visualize it like an apple browning. Our cells can oxidize just like a cut apple will brown when exposed to the environment. Or to use my analogy earlier, we're literally trying to protect those batteries of our cells, the mitochondria. And like any a battery, it's like they can rust, essentially when there's too much oxidative stress. So that's what we're trying to prevent. So some big bang for your buck type things, and again, we've got more on this in the knowledge well and specific strategies to really help. But see, these are some of the big bucket things that you can focus on. So quitting tobacco in all forms, smoking in general. I would also add vaping, to this, even if that's tobacco free, lots of chemicals in there. Pull back on drinking. If you can cut that out, it's a fantastic thing to do. But if you're going out on a date night, and you want to enjoy a good glass of wine together or something, like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about any type of regular drinking. And we're think about this as like straws on the camel's back. It adds up over time. So the more straws you can reduce, the less you have to mitigate with antioxidants and nutrients, right? So improving the air quality in your home with plants and filters, drinking filtered tap water in glass containers versus plastic, moving regularly, getting fresh, oxygenated, nutrient rich blood pumping through your body to help your body's natural detoxification systems. Sweating is so helpful for that. Lymphatic support. So just any type of movement. Eating colorful, well-varied, antioxidant-rich diet, so lots of fruits and vegetables. Choosing supplements that provide a really hefty, targeted, and evidence-based dose of antioxidants. Okay, let's talk about supplements here. So the problem with a lot of supplements is they really do what's called in the industry pixie dusting, where they put enough of an ingredient to have it show up on the label, but not enough for it to actually do anything. So it doesn't. That was one of the reasons why I really actually got into why I developed FullWell in the first place. Was I was tired of seeing supplements that they looked good at first glance on the label, but when you dug into it, it's like there's it might be a blend of 45 different fruits and vegetables, but it's less than what would be the equivalent of a blueberry in the end, and so that's just misleading and not helpful, right? If we're going to take a supplement, if you're going to invest in it, if you're going to consume it, you want to make sure that it's effective along with being safe and high quality. And so that's why behind every FullWell formula, I really put, and the whole team does, so much R&D and research into making sure that it's going to be effective. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be high quality. So we're really excited. This might be one of my favorite products. It's hard to pick, but we have a number of products launching this year. But this has actually been about 3 years in the making, this product, our new fertility booster. It has gone through many iterations. It has, there's a long backstory for another day on this product. But let me talk to you about some of the really key ingredients in this formula. So first, we've got alpha lipoic acid. It has 200 milligrams per serving of alpha lipoic acid, which is a really good evidence-based dose of this nutrient. So alpha lipoic acid is protective and restorative for sperm and eggs. It supports oocyte, those egg cells maturation to fertilization and embryo development. It improves sperm parameters like sperm count, concentration, motility, and the levels of antioxidants within sperm. And it helps produce healthy sperm DNA because it's so protective. CoQ10. This may be one that you've heard of before, coenzyme Q10. I would say this is probably the most typical antioxidant or just generally fertility supplement recommended. I am so excited about the form of CoQ10 that we are using in this formula. It is the best, and one of the reasons why I waited so long to launch this product, because I wanted to get this one right. CoQ10 protects cells from free radicals and supports metabolism. So much research showing that it boosts mitochondrial function. Remember, the engine or the battery of our eggs. Supports egg maturation and fertilization, embryo development, supports egg quality and pregnancy success rates, particularly for women over 35. It supports a healthy response to assisted reproduction efforts, so IVF, IUI. improves male fertility parameters like sperm quality, concentration, and motility. What I'm really excited about is we fit 150 milligrams of this CoQ10 into one per serving a day. And while you might be thinking that's not a lot, the form of CoQ10 that we use is actually 3 times more bioavailable than typical coenzyme Q10. What that means is it's almost like triple the amount. And there are clinical studies showing that this specific form, which is called a phytosome, helps to influence blood levels of coenzyme Q10 at a rate of about 3 times as much as typical CoQ10. It's difficult for your body to absorb CoQ10 in supplement form, and it's not something that we can find really significantly in our diet. It's something that our body produces, but keeping up with the demand is difficult. So this is why CoQ10 is just probably one of the most researched antioxidants for, and maybe supplements as a whole, for fertility health. And I'm just really excited that it's also very, very expensive. And so I'm excited that we were able to fit what is essentially like the equivalent of really 450 milligrams of CoQ10 a day into a serving of our fertility booster. Ashwagandha. All right. This lights up my herbalist heart. So ashwagandha is a fantastic adaptogen. It's a root. I have grown ashwagandha for a number of years, and it's such a beautiful plant. It promotes calm, clarity, relaxation, healthy stress response. It can help maintain normal cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and we want those levels to be in balance. It's been shown in the research to improve sperm count, motility, morphology. It protects sperm from free radicals, which are, again, unstable molecules that can damage cells. We want to balance those free radicals with antioxidants. And we were able to put 250 milligrams a day of ashwagandha into the product. So this is the form of ashwagandha that we're using is a KSM 66 ashwagandha, and it is the best ashwagandha on the market. And it really is easy to tolerate. It's highly bioavailable. So if you have had ashwagandha in the past and you're not sure that you liked it, it didn't really work for you, I would still encourage you to consider Fertility Booster here, because this form of ashwagandha, it can make all the difference, right? If you start with really high quality ingredients. And that's the case similar to CoQ10 and our alpha lipoic acid. Ashwagandha is, this is the best of the best that we put in there. NAC. Okay, NAC supports, it stands for N-acetylcysteine. It supports liver and kidney detoxification by aiding in the clearance of heavy metals. It helps maintain healthy insulin levels. It enhances mitochondrial function and cellular energy production. It supports healthy ovulation, eggs, oocytes maturation, and embryo quality. It also can improve sperm concentration, ejaculate volume, sperm motility, and normal morphology. And we have 600 milligrams of NAC in Fertility Booster per day. NAC may be one that you've heard of. The NAC is actually also helpful for cervical mucus quality. And I mentioned earlier in the presentation that the quality of cervical mucus is so important for fertility because it helps to nourish and act as like kind of the highway or river, that sperm will follow to get to the egg for fertilization. And so NAC has been really all of these ingredients that are in Fertility Booster have been separate products that I've pieced together for my fertility clients over years. And I wanted in one supplement to make things easier, more streamlined, more affordable. And again, the highest quality of each of those individual ingredients as possible. Okay, so who is this product for? Who is Fertility Booster for? Those trying to conceive or planning to start a family soon, those who are undergoing fertility treatment, those who want to improve sperm quality before freezing their eggs or sperm, those who are looking to protect their fertility for the future. This is just such an awesome antioxidant product that I plan on, even though I am now grateful I have my 2 really healthy children. I am now beyond that phase and now focus solely on supporting others and growing their family. And I still plan to take this product. I'm going to give it to everybody I know. I think that the world needs more protection against the and oxidative stress that we really face, and that antioxidants are just so critical to overall health. But I will say that to zero in on when you really are going to get the most from this product for fertility purposes, I would say 3-6 months prior to conceiving. If you're further than that out, start. There's no soon. No, let me rephrase that. There's never too soon to start this, because remember that some of those really primordial, very early egg cells can start developing even a year prior to conceiving, but kind of goes really into overdrive in the 3 months prior. So really, to answer this question, 3 to 6 months prior to conceiving. For women, you would stop taking this product when you confirm pregnancy, or as directed by your health practitioner. There are cases where I might do things a little bit differently with an individual if I know them and they're sitting in front of me. But make sure that you follow the advice of your practitioner. But generally speaking, that is how we suggest to take it. All right. Thank you. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions about Fertility Booster, any of our products, or FullWell as a whole.